This is the boombar, and we pray that you'll be a part of it. It's just for 1 hour.
Yes. So today is going to be very interesting as there are a few things that we're going to be talking about. Of course, the very first thing, or the main thing on the front burner, and as it regards Nigeria, basically, is fuel subsidy removal. Still, President has still not officially said fuel subsidy has been removed. He didn't say it. I just wanted to put that out there. Nobody said anything like that, and I'm still going to stand on that. There should be a formal announcement. He did not.
Well,
just
for people
pull
like
the carpet
for
under our feet.
for
Just
people
put it
like
there.
Dorupo who say the man didn't say
He didn't.
it's maybe they're in denial. I don't know. Maybe they're just being mischievous, or maybe they're just so formal that they think that there has to be a town hall meeting about this. When the government of President Muhammadu Buhari prepared its budget for 2023, it was stated clearly. We even discussed it here at the bar that what happens.
It was after June.
It
My
was
memory
stated clearly.
that's serves me correctly,
you were
it's
talking
just the
about
5th day of June.
You're talking about an announcement. So
Yes.
I'm just trying to respond to that. It was stated clearly in that. In the much celebrated signing of the Petroleum Industry Act or bill, it was also captured and clearly stated there that the subsidy regime was over. And we all played the ostrich and just acted like, the typical Nigerian. When the time comes, when we get to that bridge, we'll cross it. Baba, now that bridge we did now.
We're not supposed to be at the bridge yet. The bridge was supposed to be at the end of June.
For the new president, who I think has been in government for 8 days now, he said that there is no provision for it. So it is gone. It is over. It's done with. I feel that it's because he could have chosen his words differently, that a lot of people feel the way Dolupo feel.
Funny enough, I'm not even talking about what he said during the inauguration. I felt because we already knew that fuel subsidy was going by the end of June. Him talking about it that day looked like he was just reiterating the fact. Not that first day of June it was going. There should have been a proper, especially the fact that what we were told before was that fuel subsidy was going to end by the end of was going to end by the end of okay,
I apologize
sorry,
for that noise.
Was going to end by the end of June. So when he said fuel subsidy is gone, looks like, it's finally talking about it and is going to keep that conversation going. Then there should have been a formal conversation or a formal announcement that CEO, this thing was supposed to end by June, but is ending by May because you don't even have the money to pay for the June. That's where my issue comes from.
Which is what the MD of the NNPCL.
No, we do not answer to the NNPC because last I checked, the NNPC was a private company.
You do not answer.
More like the NNPC does not answer to Nigerians. We did not, or people did not. I didn't vote. People did not vote for the NNPC. The NNPC, as we speak today, is not even a government agency anymore. So I do not think that we need to hear it from the NNPC. And if I remember their statement correctly, they were basically talking about their own stations, which makes them a private company.
If you're sure they were talking about their own stations, why did you bring them into this conversation?
You did. You just did now that the NNPC, you did.
Yeah. Why did you now follow through on that?
I'm just saying that we do not answer. I was replying what you said. We do not answer to the NNPC, or the NNPC does not answer to Nigerians. So I do not think it's the NNPC that should be announcing to Nigerians.
But your constitution empowers them to ensure that you have fuel.
At the moment.
Okay. So who is better to explain the situation than the person that the constitution has empowered that you have fuel?
The person that said they was supposed to go and we knew that was supposed to go.
Oh, the person that said was, or the person that removed it. You want to bring him back?
Okay, the person
You want to bring
that,
the former president back?
No, the person that, no, it was not President Buhari that removed it. According to President Buhari, it should have ended by the end of June. It was President Bola Tinubu that removed it at the end of.
Has Tinubu done the budget?
But the budget, if we go by the budget,
has he done the budget?
No, but if we go by the budget, there should be payment for subsidy for June. That's what I'm saying.
There
so it's him.
should be payment for subsidy for June.
So it's him.
And in the situation where there is no money for payment for subsidy,
so who took that decision?
Who took the decision?
Bola Tinubu.
The money took the decision.
Bola Tinubu
there is no
took
money.
The decision.
It doesn't matter who even took the decision.
It does. It does matter.
How does it matter? Because I think you're going on about things that are so mundane.
No,
about someone coming to announce something that is so obvious and glaring.
Nope.
You see, your life is already being governed by it. There's nothing you can do about it.
I'm not saying, I feel that you cannot
strike
just
on Wednesday.
Stop. You cannot just stop. Okay, I think those ones, honestly, personally, I really think at this point, I think NLC.
You can strike on Wednesday.
Becoming a joke.
You can strike on Wednesday.
I just personally feel that if you were going to do it, because that was not what the plan was, or that was not what the budget stated. If that was what was going to happen, the least that could have been done was to this subsidy that we're supposed to pay for the month of June, there is no money to pay it. We are taking it out right now by the end of May. And that would have sufficed a little bit. It really took everybody by surprise. I think it is unfair. That part I think was completely unfair. That's what I feel. Do I feel that we still need fuel subsidy? No. Especially when I was listening to a part of the former governor of Edo State and former NLC president, incidentally, Adams Oshiomhole, where he was talking about the meeting he had with the TUC and all that. And it's interesting where he was like that he made something that the federal government is going to save that money. And I'm like, we get the fact that they don't even have money to save. They didn't even have the money on ground at all. If they were going to pay, they were probably going to have to borrow money, or the NNPC would have to borrow the government to pay the subsidy for the month of June. So yes, do I agree that maybe there isn't money to pay for it? Yes, it makes sense. I just felt that there should have been a little bit more transparency with and coming out, this is what is going to happen at this time. Anyway,
the issues could have been handled differently. There's no need to, there's no need to go on and on about that. I said that on more than one episode of the Boombar, and every opportunity I had gotten. But I actually sat down to watch the interviews that the group head of the Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation Limited or Company Limited granted. I watched him on Channels TV and another radio station and TV station, and I looked at the fact that he was presenting, and I said to myself, at this point that I am in as a person, as Shola Rogers, this is the way forward. I subscribe to the removal of fuel subsidy. It hurts me to say it, but it is the truth. It is where we are, and I get how we're going to politicize it, but what keeps me going is knowing that if it was Peter Obi that was declared as the winner of the elections, the February 25th elections, or Abubakar Atiku, they all said they were going to remove subsidy.
Yeah.
So that gives me some kind of peace of mind that we were obviously going to get to this point.
It was going to get to a point.
In fact, with Peter Obi, he didn't even mean what he said immediately. And the day he was saying, I'm like, why so, eager to, but this is where we are.
It is what it is, yeah?
I've seen a couple of reports. There's an old report, I don't know how old, but it's not this month, that was commissioned by a foreign media platform. I think it's a French TV station or some TV station in Europe, where the reporter went to Cameroon and they were talking to people who deal in, smuggled petroleum from Nigeria. Smuggled petrol from Nigeria. And the guy talked about how he makes about $40 or $50 a day from selling petrol from Nigeria. And that's how he feeds his family and does a whole lot of stuff. And I started multiplying. Okay, if he makes $40 a day from smuggled petrol times 20 days in a month, man, that brother is making $1,600.
He's making a killing. Oh yeah,
on your subsidy. Then I look at feedback of how filling stations in Benin Republic are said. I've seen videos actually, and I read a report from the BBC, and they're claiming that their reporter there said that more people are now forced to buy fuel from the filling stations for as long as you can know. For about 30 years in Benin Republic, you can buy fuel on the road from the people who sell the Nigerian smuggled petrol, and you can buy from the filling station. But the filling stations cost more, so people always buy. Like on the road, they buy like 350, 400, 500 naira per liter. And the filling stations about 600, 650, 700 naira per liter. And they're saying that there's a lot of pressure on the filling stations now.
Yeah.
So you look at the ripple effect it's having. We've not heard about what's happening in Niger, but we've heard about Cameroon and Benin Republic, and those are at least the ones that we're sure of. So we look at it and say, so all this while, subsidy that was meant for, the Nigerian people was actually being benefited from more by non-Nigerians.
Yeah.
And who are the people behind this? You see, the real issue is that, yes, subsidy has to go. I get that. But you see, the government is not facing the real issue. The real issue is, why can't you tackle the people who are, I can't say exporting, because exporting is something legal, who are smuggling subsidized fuel out of Nigeria? Why can't you tackle the people who are allowing it? Why can't you tackle the people who own the transportation system that is being used for them to smuggle? Let us face the real issues. The real issues are that, really and truly, if we had proper borders, there's nothing wrong with keeping subsidy until the refineries are working. But again, why are the refineries not working? I was listening to one of the supporters of the APC who was talking on another media platform today, and he was talking about the refineries will not work for as long as there's subsidy. So this is you people basically admitting that there's some kind of powerful group. I hate the word cabal, and people also use it and put S at the end. I'm like, oh God, what's cabal? It's cabal, but it's not an English class. I dislike the word, but you're saying that there's some powerful people who will make sure that the refineries don't work,
yeah,
because there's more money to be made from fuel subsidy. So for me, the government might be making the right decision about stopping subsidy, but again, even if there's still a margin between your 500 or 520 naira to 480 naira and a 600 or 700 naira outside Nigeria, there's still an error. There's still a margin for them to still decide to smuggle. So what we need to tackle, the profit margin is low, but there's still the chance, even if it's 50 naira.
Okay, but at that point, government is not paying for it anymore. They're not paying for anything. So even if I don't even think it will be termed as smuggling anymore. Because if you bring in fuel through Nigeria and you decide to take it to Benin Republic, good luck to you.
There is no law that allows you to do that. You need a license to do those kind of things.
No, I get that point.
So that's smuggling.
So it's still smuggling, but at the end of the day, it's the economics of it is not how do I say now? It does not affect Nigeria. Yeah,
but basically what I'm saying is that for as long as it looks like our fuel is still a little bit cheaper, then the argument about other countries, benefiting from it, is defeated because there's no way you can stop that. But it could have been better. Really, I get where the was coming from earlier, and that was my stance too. If they had waited for 1 or 2 refineries to come on stream, but they're complaining 7.2 trillion in 6 months, and even the 7.2 trillion, the government hasn't even paid about 3 trillion of that, and the NNPC is saying that's supposed to be its own income, and all of that. So it's all messy. Bottom line is that, again, even at 500 naira, people are still queuing for it. At least in this neighborhood.
See, is that one that is pissing me off, and that's the honest truth. Because for me, at the moment, I'm more of, if I'm going to buy fuel that expensive, then I don't see a reason why I should buy stuff that is expensive. It does not make any logical sense to me. Personally, that's what I'm just saying. Like, I get it's already expensive, but I don't think it makes any sense that we should buy stuff that is expensive and then I have to queue. A lot of people are saying that there are no queues, even though I remember there was a statement, I think last week, that the NNPC group MD had talked about how a lot of queues were going to ease up this week. Hopefully, is looking like it is easing up this week. So yes, I think that's a very, very good thing to do. But now, still talking about fuel subsidy, there is a story of the NLC insisting on going on strike. And now one of the main issues, or what they're asking for, is that the price of fuel should go back to the old price, and then the government should find a way to do this thing in a better way before subsidy is removed. Basically, they want subsidy to come back. And if I remember correctly, this is kind of what happened that brought about Occupy Nigeria a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But the issue I have with that, or no, I would say the issue, the difference is that there was a collective, what's the word now? There was a collective anger in people that this thing cannot happen, it can't work. Maybe the government did not explain it to people a lot more. As much as, yes, I do not think I like the way the Tribunal government went about removing the fuel subsidy. But the honest truth is that, especially if you're a news person, since last year there was already a conversation of fuel subsidy that was going to be removed. It was supposed to go, I think last year, was by December. We're not supposed to get into 2023 with fuel subsidy in the first place. Then it was moved to June. So we knew for a fact, I think there was already people's subconscious that
excuse me,
the fuel subsidy was going to be removed.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that's the difference between what happened then. Because right now, I've seen a lot of people's takes. A lot of people have had a lot of takes, and I'm not sure that I have seen one individual make a video or make a post agreeing with the NLC, even though I've seen a lot of people talk about how NLC I saw a lady talking about how NLC at the moment should be fighting for better welfare for workers instead of going on strike. That strike should be a last resort and not the first thing to do. I saw another person that put out a statement that was talking about how, when did NLC become who determines what? And another person going on about how where was NLC during COVID-19 when people were on lockdown? Where was NLC when a lot of things during the EndSARS movement? What did they do for the welfare of workers? What benefits do you get being a member of the NLC? And then all they are good at is strikes.
Yeah, the most potent weapon in the armory of the Nigerian labor movement is the strike system. And you hear and read a lot. You look at and you sample opinions.
Yeah.
I remember one of the top ministers under President Goodluck Jonathan. She happens to be a top person in world economy today. She heads a global parastatal. I'm sure you know who I am referring to, none other than Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. And she talked about how difficult it is to tackle these fuel subsidy removal.
Yeah.
That it was so bad that a mother was kidnapped,
abducted.
Yeah, and all sorts of things happen. So you start to look like, okay, wow, this is how serious this stuff is.
Yeah.
Now, at times when people roll out for these mass actions or kick against these things, at times you start to say that, okay, what's going on? Is it because this is how they feel, or are they being sponsored? Because former governor of River State, immediate past governor, Nyesom Wike, was saying that, look, some of these things that you're saying, they're sponsored. And you're hearing about what happened to Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala and a couple of other people, and how they keep telling you that, oh man, it's the cabal, the billionaires, the one who are about to lose money, that are going to back those people to protest. So you start to wonder, like, are you maybe even a willing tool in their hands? Like, if you hit the streets too, are you also being used? Because you're not going to get nothing from it anyway. Apart from you being passionate about maybe the subsidy regime returning. So you look at that and look at other protests and say, okay, some people had sponsored protests in the past. The sad thing, and a lot of people are saying that it's quite hypocritical of this particular government, is that they fought against the removal of subsidy a couple of years ago, about 12 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And they more or less politicized the whole thing, and it became like a total shutdown in Nigeria. Like, it was the big deal that occupying Nigeria and all of that. They wrote articles about it, they made videos about it. Then you look back and say, okay, so is it that we should look the other way and say, okay, we should cut them some slack and say, now they know better? Or was it basically them messing things up for political reasons so that they could, seize power through the ballots anyway? So you look at all of these things and you start to wonder that at the end of the day, it brings you back to one thing: subsidy removal has to happen.
It was inevitable. Whether it was 12 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years, or now, it had to go somewhere.
Yeah, and of course, like our lead story, the headline, we're talking about how the subsidy removal led us to the point where we started doing crude swaps. Nigeria was going to ship out, or would always ship out, crude oil and get, the byproducts in return. So of course it's like a rent system where I pay you with crude.
Yeah, it's the barter system.
Yeah, barter, more like a barter system. I give you crude, then you give me the byproducts. You would have charged me X amount, which you would deduct from the, the product that I sent to you. So if you take a look at all of that, now the NNPCL, who are saying that by law they are going to only own 30% of the market share, are saying that they're stopping that completely, which I see as a good sign.
Yeah, according to the story. Okay, you didn't still talk about the NLC before we get to that. That's a different story.
Yeah, I just made reference to it. So the NLC is on their own part. There are two major labor groups: the Trade Union Congress and the Nigerian Labour Congress, and they're like Siamese twins of sorts. Now, the Trade Union Congress actually had a sit down with the government yesterday. It's going to continue tomorrow. That's before the strike that has been called by the Nigerian Labour Congress. And I totally agree with virtually all the people who are against the NLC's approach.
Shouldn't they at least have meetings first?
There's supposed to be some kind of consultation amongst the members of the Labour Congress, from union to union, from state to state, from region to region. Then you arrive at the national and say, okay, we have sampled everybody's opinion and this is what they want. What we saw was just a group of people who sat down. There's a lot of talk about them sitting down in a church to call.
Yeah. Oh, there was the banner of the church.
The truth about it is that it's not a church per se. It's their all that they rent out
to the church.
And someone in their group was not smart enough or sensible enough to use their own banner to cover the banner
maybe
of
their
the church.
venom was too angry. They were too angry at that point. They didn't remember. I like I said personally, I feel that where NLC is at this point, I don't see the strike gaining as much ground as they would expect. I would expect that they
Depends on who you're listening to.
I would expect that they would talk more, but I also feel that NLC at this point, I think that another thing that is not making a lot of people see reason with them also is a political angle. There's been a lot of politicizing of the NLC a couple of months back up until now.
Yeah.
At least their leaders.
Yeah.
So now, there's also the conversation, which I've seen a lot. If you go on social media, there's a conversation of, is this really the NLC?
You know, that was the first question I asked when we had this discussion last week.
It's just a Labour Party, just a form of opposition move from the Labour Party.
I asked this question before last week, and I'm just, for...
And then, if it's common sense, why would you not at least have a sit down with the government?
If the candidate of the Labour Party
had won,
said that he was going to remove it, what did the NLC say to him at that time?
Mm-hmm.
Because the leader of the NLC now, Tony Ajero, I saw him at one or two campaigns. They were wearing the same attire and all of that. If he said that to you, you should have shut him down immediately.
If you do not have a problem, if you have a problem with fuel subsidy, I think that
he also made reference to how the government is creating a monopoly for one individual. He was referring to Dangote's refinery and all of that. And I said to myself, if this guy is really in charge of labor, does he not know the number of modular refineries that are actually on stream as we speak?
The ones that are set.
Does he not know the ones that are going to come on stream in the next 1 year, from the government-owned to
the private
owned ones, So I said to myself, it's sounding a little bit, political.
Biased, yes. Yeah. Like we're not.
So this is not the labor that we used to know.
Yes, I totally agree with you. At this moment, we will see what's going to happen on Wednesday, but a lot could happen between today and Wednesday, really. And talking about now what we were supposed to really start with, I think that's basically the background. Now, I was reading it that the president had a meeting with the NNPC and all that, and now the president has kind of basically ordered that even the government is going to start buying everybody. There is no barter anymore. Let anybody that wants to buy crude from the government buy it straight. Bring your money. If you want to import, everybody import with money. There is no form of trade by barter anymore, because that way you can't even trace how much you're making from one or how much you're spending from the other, which I think makes sense.
Yeah,
what you buy is what you sell. Even by the time refineries come on stream, let whoever is going to buy from Dangote, sell to whoever.
It's a good move. It's a good move. I remember when a couple of years ago, when we were still in school, we had a friend who had a lounge, a pool joint and everything. So we'll go there to shoot pool and drink and hang out. And whenever he wanted a drink, he would pay. And I'm looking at him like, you own everything, man. He said, for accountability purposes, that he doesn't want a situation where they'll come back to tell him that you took 10 bottles. When he knows that he actually took 4 and he paid for it. Oh, that because you took this, then we give that. Then again, what that also did was that
his friends had
to pay for their drinks too. I'm talking about him now, and I've seen the guy's face, And I said to myself, smart business move, right?
Yes, very
smart business move. So maybe if Nigeria starts to do that, there will be more transparency and accountability. That, okay, the federal government is buying crude off the refineries at X amount.
Yeah.
Then how much does it cost to refine? And then we will not even know
the refineries
will buy price.
Crude from the federal government.
Yeah.
Everybody, we're on a level playing field. We're not assuming anymore. Yeah. It's what you buy, is what you sell. I think that it makes sense.
Maybe it will finally bring some form of accountability.
Like you said, accountability, transparency. We need a lot of those things at the moment. moving on from that, still talking about monies involved. Now, there's a report that had come out today that Nigeria has now topped blocked airline funds country list. We know that there's been a lot of talk about a lot of airlines having their trapped funds in Nigeria. I was watching an interview a few days ago, and one person was talking about how one of the reasons why this is happening is also because of the strain on the dollar. So even the Nigerian government can't get dollar enough to pay these people off. So if at least one of the issues of the strain of the dollar and it is the fuel subsidy is off, some of these things, if we are doing a lot more production on our own, then a lot of these things will probably be easier to get paid with. I think it makes sense.
If you take a look at it, and they tell you that Nigeria is averaging about 500 million naira worth of subsidy. Abi? Mm-hmm. That subsidy is not necessarily the total value of purchasing the PMS.
Yeah.
It's the amount that is being subsidized.
Yes.
So if we take a look at it, that means we're spending more than 500 million naira a month on petrol.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're selling petrol at X depot 170, 160, and you are subsidizing it upward to the tune of 200 or 300 naira, you add that to the amount of buying and landing and everything. So that means we're talking about maybe like, instead of 500 million, we're talking about 800 million every month. And you convert that to dollars. That's the amount of dollar
that's needed
for petrol. Mm-hmm. Petrol, not jet A1 for aviation, not the aviation fuel, not diesel,
not kerosene,
not gas, it's just petrol. Maybe when you add every other thing, you're talking about 1 billion naira worth of dollars or more every month from the energy sector, just from the crude / petrol sector. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if you look at that and you start to add other things like, we have brothers who import things from China and other parts of the world.
Yeah.
We're probably averaging about $2 billion plus dollars requirement every month. So if about 30, 40 or 50% of that is going into petrol and diesel and all of that, is no longer going there. That's pressure.
I think it's a lot of pressure off the market.
It's the demand and the parallel market that is making it go high. Because why is there a parallel market? Because when people go to the main market, they don't get what they want.
They don't get what they want.
Some of the petrol that we have, the monies that they used to import it actually sourced from the parallel market.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree. So it's a very interesting. It's a very interesting conversation around all this. Before we leave the issue of crude and all that, there's a conversation that has been going on since yesterday, and it's the conversation of gas.
Yeah.
And how gas has dropped. In fact, as of this morning, it is close to almost half of what it was a couple of months ago.
Last month or 2 months ago.
2 months ago. And a lot of people have been giving different hot takes.
My take, since it's hot takes, let me bring my own. It might be hot or cold. I don't think it really has anything to do with subsidy removal. I think it has more to do with market forces and the global trend, where you know that at a certain period in the year, based on demand, and other forces around the market, the cost of gas usually goes up. And there are times when it comes down. But now we're so, into the subsidy discussion.
That everything is either...
Everybody's now paying attention to...
I think that, yes, I agree that a lot of people didn't used to pay attention to these things before.
Yeah.
And remember when we were talking about it yesterday, and I'm like, I remember very well when I was younger, how by October, my mom would go and buy 2-3 cylinders, fill it up, because she's like that when it's close to December, that's when the prices start. And then, so by the time she's gone through all those cylinders, the price would come down. But shouldn't, especially gas, that if I remember correctly, we do not import gas.
Yeah, but again,
so shouldn't there have shouldn't there
We've
be
not-
a little bit more stability with those things, with that?
You know that the government of President Buhari, former President Buhari, started something called the decade of gas, which is about ramping up gas production and distribution and usage,
which will definitely drop the price. There's more supply.
When you talk about the domestic requirements for gas, everybody has them in cylinders.
Yeah, I remember they were even gifting out cylinders and all that.
Yeah, they're talking about how some of your cylinders are even expired.
Yeah.
And it's true. Some of you have had those cylinders for 20 years or so. You fix them when you notice, but they're saying some of them are expired. So the government was giving out cylinders and everything. And they were also talking about converting cars. That got, especially the commercial vehicles, especially the buses and the trucks and everything, that gas is supposed to be cleaner and cheaper.
Yeah.
And that was 2021, 2022, 2023. I felt that by now,
we would have done a lot more
most
on
of
that
the
conversation.
midstream, downstream people would have actually keyed into this gas discussion.
I even felt that
and it would have
when
been
it came to maybe, it would
spread.
have even been easier for things like
removing subsidy will not be a problem if people know that they could buy gas into their car.
It's very interesting. Someone was talking about how her driver came to work. I saw a video where she was talking about her driver came to work early, and they were like, how was transport? And he was like, no, that he didn't have a problem with it. That he took BRT, I think he said from Orile to Lekki or something.
Yeah, like 400 naira.
400 naira.
Yeah.
That she was shocked. They're like,
I think you told me that story.
That is BRT that he took. So the fuel subsidy removal did not affect
because it's diesel.
Those things.
Diesel.
it was which I felt that for somewhere like Lagos that they already have a system like that. Like you were saying, the transition to gas, those mass transit buses would have been a perfect.
Exactly. Because again, I know Lagos State started this package with Owando or one of these companies. And
I think it was for their electric buses.
They have electric buses. But it's the same way, we can do this mass movement now and try to do more conversions. Some people even went for training that were going to help people convert their vehicles.
Exactly. I thought that there were going to be a lot more talks
and
about it now.
That is not happening now. So it's time for the government to go and look at this decade of gas that President Buhari's government started and really look at it,
tap into it,
ramp it up and say, you know what, you could actually get gas to drive your car. It's cheaper and it's cleaner. So this is one of the things. The other thing, is that, I know you were looking at that story. I don't know if you're going to talk about it or not, but it's in Katsina. They said that the government is maintaining the cost of transportation.
Yeah.
That they told the transport system, the transport company to make sure that nothing goes up and all of that. I'm like, come on, it's diesel you people are using now. Because
so
again,
it doesn't change anything.
Yeah, but again, they know how exploitative people can be.
Now, I'm talking about states. There's a report that I saw from Kwara State right now, and Kwara State had talked about how for the meantime, there's going to be a 3-day work day for state servants and not now.
We need to explain that. It's not that they're only working 3 days a week in Kwara and everything shuts down. They're going to work from Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
But the supervisors, the directors, the senior staff will select people who will come on which days.
Yes,
so
basically you have shifts,
alternate
days of working. Now, this is where my problem lies. And this is what happens every single time. When you hear all these things, which I think is a very nice thing, but it still goes back to, it's only state civil servants that enjoy this.
Yeah.
The private sector, and whether we like it or not, the larger chunk of people, except maybe you're in Osun State or, a few states, most states, or if you try that one in Lagos, it's literally not going to make a lot of difference. Because what's the percentage of the people that work in the private sector and what's the percentage of people that work with the state?
You take it again from the state's perspective. For them now, they can tell you now that, look, instead of you working 20 days a week, a month, now you're working 12 days a month. You have 8 days off. I don't need to increase your salary.
Okay.
You can take it from the state's perspective that I've made your life easier.
Okay. So
So
invariably, you're kind of getting paid more for doing less.
less. Do you get?
Okay.
So that it's at the end of the day,
It balances out.
It's balanced.
Instead of increasing
that
your salary.
instead of,
But
because,
even if there was
because
an increase,
the wage bill,
it will still be
the
just
wa-
state.
yeah, it's the state that will
That's
now.
what I'm saying. But it's
The
still
inside
only
the federal,
state
the inside the
services.
federal government, because we all know that this Tinubu's government is going to increase the.
Yeah, there's conversation of.
They're going to increase the
minimum
wage.
Yes.
They said don't even call it a living wage. They're going to increase salaries. So we have that conversation going that they're going to increase salaries. We know that for a fact. So the instant they increase salaries, the state governments will be under pressure. They're going to be under pressure to meet up. Like even the 30K that they are on, and people are saying, man, it's too small.
There's some states
And
that
some
are
people
not
like
even
they can't
paying,
afford to
yeah.
pay it. Even when it was 18,000 or whatever it was, the federal government had to bail them out at least once. I don't want to say twice, but I know at least once that they were bailed out by the federal government. So now you're asking them to now go higher.
Why?
So the thing that Kwara has done should be studied and looked at. When I heard it a few minutes ago, I just said to myself, wow, this is smart. Because again, before you started telling me about, I'm telling you that I have reduced.
I reduced the number of times you are coming to work.
Yeah.
So I don't want
So,
to hear.
yeah.
But I'm still saying
Again,
that it affects only the.
Yeah, again, that's where you need to look at it from the state's perspective. Now, from the private sector, we all found out that during COVID that you didn't have to go to work every day for certain industries.
Yeah.
Even in the media, at home and abroad, especially abroad, Trevor Noah, whom I like and follow a lot,
Yeah.
was presenting his program from his living room.
Yes, but take for example, if we take Boom Radio for example, you have to come to work.
But we do a lot of virtual stuff. We do a lot of work.
Still, Monday to Friday, you will have live shows that you have to do in the studio.
But Saturday and Sunday, we're still working, and
That's what I'm
and
saying.
you don't have to come to work.
That's what I'm saying. But that there's still a lot of offices that Monday to Friday they cannot avoid it. You still have to come to work.
So that's one aspect of it. I talked about people who have started working remotely, and that opened up a new vista.
Oh yeah, that's
Now,
a lot.
the bulk of those people are not getting on the road like they used to, or that they would have had to. So let's take that and say, okay, that's one group less that is on the road. But there's still traffic in Lagos. There's still traffic in Lagos, right? So, okay, so what's going on? Private sector. The bulk of the non-government workers are actually, for me, in the informal sector. They're not necessarily in the 9 to 5 group. You know, for me, I believe that people who are
The market.
self-employed, people who are entrepreneurs of all sorts and all categories. Do you get? So, whatever happens, we need to factor that in. But until we realize that that sector exists and we start to plan for them and factor them in, because again, you don't know how much they are making. You don't know what kind of business they are doing. You don't know how well they are thriving. So you can't even fix their income. You cannot fix their expenditure. But what it does is that they usually borrow from that. They usually look into it and say, oh, okay, so the government is doing this at a minimum. And especially in certain sectors. So it could cause some kind of cascading of, the wage bill. It could cause a ripple effect. It could go up, it could go down, or it could just not affect anything. It depends, So in the coming days, we'll be sure to see how these things will pan out.
Yeah, okay. We'll definitely see how that will pan out, like you had said. So let's move on from all that conversation and then move on to something very interesting that happened today. So we know that in the Southeast, there's something called Sitatum every Monday. Sadly, it is what it is. The governors have still not found a way to that we've had some governors that have tried. Some states, I think, is not as enforced in some parts than some parts, but the one we're going to zero in now is on Enugu State, where over last week the new governor had made an order cancelling that there was nothing like a sit at home and all that. And I remember that there was a video, I think you had showed me, that the new head of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, talked about how the governor cannot stop the sit at home and all that going on. And surprisingly, I'm sure that a lot of people were expecting, like, okay, let's see the drama that was going to happen today if that was people were really going to follow the governor's orders. Lo and behold, I've seen pictures and videos of today, and it looks like they sit at home in Enugu State.
Oh, there is, and there was, and there is ongoing sit at home in. So every Monday in the southeastern part of Nigeria, most of the states, people don't go out because of a directive that was given by the group IPOB, which is a group that is fighting for the creation of a country. Their country, they say, is Biafra. That's what they want. So, I think it's time we're clear about who is in charge of what. The governors are the chief security officers of that state, right? But they're not in charge of the police. They're not in charge of the army. Yes, they can help them, sponsor them, and push them.
For security every month.
So, it is also time that the federal government actually took a stance on this. They need to take a stance. Yesterday, the news broke of how, soldiers from the Goodluck Jonathan barracks, I think it's in Abia State also, actually rescued women from another baby factory. They had about 21 young women, pregnant women, who were kept in captivity there. So if the army is doing this and they are in existence in those places, I think it's time they actually ramped up their presence.
I honestly think that remember there was a conversation
people who stayed at home. People who stayed at home, I don't blame them.
No,
you see, the governor cannot use fiat. He can't say, you must go out. If you don't go out, I'll shut down your school. Oga, you don't understand. Did you go there to protect them?
Security for people.
Like, for instance,
people have died.
Like, for instance, governor should walk the streets that day. Walk with your own police details and
not
everything.
Just even that.
Go around.
I think that
I show them that, look, it's safe to come out.
You wake up in the morning.
I don't blame the people who didn't go out.
There are people that go out to enforce these things illegally. You wake up today and then there's news by 12 o'clock that 200 or 300 ESN or IPOB people have been arrested. The next week, and you arrested a large amount of people. I personally feel that other than the governors, you hear a lot of work that the army is doing in the north. This week there's an onslaught on this enclave and all that. I honestly feel that I don't even think IPOB or ESN is half or a quarter as sophisticated as the ISWAPs and the Boko Harams of this world. I honestly think that a 1 month, 2 month sit down in the southeast, they will clear them all. But I don't see the way they're doing a lot of that in the north. I don't see it happening in the southeast. I know that, yes, there was a conversation when there was a lot of that. There was a conversation of a lot of Southeasterners going on about how the army is killing their people. So maybe it was that maybe made the army pull off a little bit from that. But I feel that the governors, as much as, yes, they might do a lot, I think the governors can't do everything. I think the army or the presidency needs to help the Southeast at the moment.
No, like I said, it's time for the federal government to get more involved.
Exactly. Quickly before we go. Now let's move on to a few things that we're going to talk about today. Okay, before we go on to sports quickly, remember that there's been a lot of demolition that has been happening in Kano State since the new governor was inaugurated. Now, one particular firm has now sued the state government over the demolition of its property, and they're demanding for a 10 billion naira compensation.
In a country
saw this coming.
In a country that has laws, you should expect stuff like that. Even if someone has broken a law, you use the law to fight them. You don't use brute force.
Yeah.
I think that the governor of Kano, the new governor, might be onto something. He's pointing out how we've read a lot about it, how some government-owned facilities have found their way into the hands of private individuals, and that's not right. But I don't think you're going to use force.
I think bringing down buildings is a waste of resources.
The things that you can reverse with your pen, you reverse. But some you can actually follow the law and go to court.
Yes.
And say this property was wrongly, given out, and we need to take it back and all. Or this person must come and buy properly from the state government. I saw the demolition of that hotel, the Douala Hotel. And I'm like, this hotel was recently commissioned and everything. It's a new hotel. And
I think it's destructive. It is very destructive.
If you can, look at the law and find out how you want to get it back, you should find a way. But bringing it down and destroying it,
very vengeful. This is not the first time it's happening in Nigeria, but maybe there should be a law against those things.
I'm sure there is a law. There's an existing law.
Because
you can't just go about with
in my
bulldozers.
mind, I'm like, I thought we are past this stage of governance.
Now, this is not to, absolve the immediate past governor.
No. I'm just saying that there
if
should
he has
be
done
better
anything
ways
wrong, I think the current governor should go through the courts in places where the law says so.
It just seems like a lot of wastage. Even if you're going to take
people are saying that it's a vendetta.
Yes,
a lot of
it
people
looks
are saying
like
that. Oh, because
it looks like it.
The governor that Ganduje defeated is this governor's father-in-law.
Yeah, father-in-law now.
Yeah, so
not just godfather, father-in-law.
So he's fighting back.
Yes.
In fact, some people are saying is the governor's third term.
Do you blame them? Doesn't it look like it? At times, we just give people something to always talk about. Quickly, let's do a little bit of go through sports that happened over the weekend. The AC Milan's Zlatan Ibrahimovic, that name has gone round a lot of leagues, and it is official. He is now retired from football.
Yeah, you don't know they retire.
You don't know they retire. I honestly was not expecting that he was going to retire.
Now retire they you don't. Whatever that means.
No, nah.
Yes,
Okay.
so just leave it.
Nah.
Don't worry. So Zlatan is to me one of the greatest athletes that ever played.
I saw
sports.
I saw the list of things he had won over his career. Beautiful.
When he went to Man United under Osimhen, it was said that Mourinho talked about his physical strength and discipline, and he said that he had the body of a 30-something-year-old. He was 30-something-year-old with the body of a 20-something-year-old. There's talk about how disciplined he is. But what I like the most...
Seeing his video yesterday, he looks good.
What I like the most about... He's 40-something. What I like the most about Zlatan is his mouth. That guy... There's this... His confidence.
Confidence that it exudes.
It comes across like, the...
It was shocking to see him cry yesterday. It was shocking.
The mythical Chuck Norris that is indestructible and that is
to me
Zlatan.
I was kind of shocked. I was taken aback because in my mind I'm like, okay, maybe if he leaves AC Milan. In fact, I'd seen the story, but I thought he was leaving AC Milan. In my mind I'm like, okay, maybe he will go to maybe done. Like the MLS.
He's done that already.
He's done that already. Yeah, no, like maybe like Saudi is spending money.
Been there, done that.
You go to maybe Saudi or go to China. Another place. I honestly didn't see that retirement coming, but it definitely will be a name that will not be forgotten in football.
Zlatan is not retired. He's just resting.
He's just resting at the moment. Okay, also another person that is for years, I think that was also very shocking over the news was Karim Benzema.
Yeah, Karim needs a new challenge. There's a 60 to 70% chance that he will find his way to Saudi Arabia.
Although it's official as of today now that he's joined Al-Ittihad.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. There's also talks about I think we already know that Lionel Messi is leaving PSG. There's talks of either him going back to Barcelona or
Barca have some issues, so they can't get him now. So they're trying to look for a backdoor. The talks of him going to the MLS, then being sent out on loan to
yes.
Barcelona.
So
but he might also find his way to Saudi Arabia.
I saw.
He was there
today,
a few weeks ago.
I saw today where they said that the government was spending as much as $20 billion to pump into the league.
Oh, yeah.
So it looks like we're seeing China all over again.
Oh yeah, but what happened with China eventually?
Anyway, we definitely will see how that goes. Also, Victor Osimhen has now become the first African to win the Serie Golden Boot.
Golden boy with the golden boot.
Yeah.
It's time for him to move on now. I believe that Victor deserves to move on to a bigger
I think he needs
challenge.
to come to the Premier League.
Yeah.
I think that's what he needs at the moment.
And again,
even though we have not,
one of the dumbest things I saw over the weekend was his teammate and the guy that the crash Quara. Shorting for the guy's name is Quara. Don't bother to Quashela or whatever. Just call him Quara. Was voted as the most valuable player in the league, and I'm like, what happened to the guy with the most goals?
The most goals
and assists and everything.
Jonathan,
but don't worry about that.
Anyway, see, come to the Premier League. Those kind of things don't happen there. Yeah.
Anything that Victor goes is going to be amazing.
Yeah, I think he's just up and up for him at the moment right now. It's amazing. I saw when he scored his goal yesterday, the whole stadium literally went.
Yeah.
Even though it's very interesting it will also be nice, people that literally adore you to stay. But
a few years ago. No, say what you want to say.
But they tell you that you leave when the ovation is loudest, yeah?
A few years ago, Victor was at a refuse dump at Olusosun there, that access, and also selling stuff in traffic. And look at him today. So don't stop dreaming, don't stop believing, man.
Yeah. And on that note, that is all we'll be able to take today on the boombar. Shout out to Burna Boy for his
80,000 strong,
for his huge feat over the weekend.
Even when there was one other top American artist in town, Burna Boy still shut it down.
He still shut it down. So that's all we have to take today on the boombar. Thank you for listening. Thank you very, very, very much for watching. We'll be back again tomorrow with another wonderful edition of the bar. Do have a beautiful, beautiful day ahead.